Brandis, the deal on Governor Pritzker's big push to make Illinois a green, energy-powered state has reportedly been close for weeks. Among the key elements of this bill are a plan to phase out fossil fuels, a goal to have 40% of the state's energy come from renewable sources by 2030, and 100% from renewables by 2050. There's also an equity component aimed at ensuring underserved communities benefit from opportunities and jobs. But the bill stalled in the Illinois Senate earlier this week. Joining us now to discuss the bill and its prospects for passage are Mark Denzler. He's president and CEO of the Illinois Manufacturers Association. Delmar Gillis, he's Chief Operating Officer at Elevate Energy. That's a nonprofit that aims to ensure all communities have access to clean and affordable heat, power, and water. Jennifer Walling, Executive Director of the Illinois Environmental Council. And Jack Darren, Director of the Sierra Club's Illinois chapter. We did invite representatives from Exelon, ComEd, as well as the state's largest co-producer, Prairie State Energy Campus, to participate in discussion, but they declined. But we're glad all of you joined us. And first of all, Jack Darren, if I can begin with you. Earlier in the program, Amanda Vidicki talked to Governor Pritzker, and the first thing that he mentioned was how important this energy bill was to him. Why is this energy bill such a big deal?
Well, thanks, Phil. We really want to applaud Governor Pritzker for his leadership here, because he's not only acknowledging the science that is telling us very clearly the urgency of decarbonizing our power grid if we want to have a chance to avert the worst consequences of climate change, but I think he's also realizing the tremendous economic potential for our economy by moving boldly into the clean energy economy, and particularly for communities that need it most, by centering equity, not only those for whom we're creating the jobs, but all the small businesses and the wealth that we're hoping to create in communities of color and communities that are facing this transition away from fossil fuels. So I think he sees it as both an imperative to act on science, but also a huge opportunity for Illinoisans.
Jennifer Walling, according to reports, this bill has been inching closer to finalization, but it just hasn't been able to cross the finish line. What happened?
I think that with all of the leadership, all of the parties involved, there is urgency around getting this energy bill done. I think that the details just need to be ironed out, and we need to bring it to a vote. I think all of the items are there to get this done and get this done quickly, and we're going to be seeing it within the month.
Jack Darren, my understanding is that the Prairie State Energy Campus, which provides energy to some suburbs, including Naperville, Winnetka, Geneva, and Batavia, that get power from the company. Some Senate Democrats balked at provisions that would phase out coal by 2035. How do you get beyond that opposition, that continued embrace of what some people call the state's biggest polluter?
I mean, Prairie State is definitely the state's biggest emitter of carbon. It's the seventh largest source of carbon in the entire United States. And for this coal plant to come in at really truly the 11th hour and threaten to block a deal that could deliver so much for so many in terms of jobs and renewable energy and access to clean transportation is just outrageous. I don't think it's a majority that have that view, but unfortunately a few were able to hold the bill up on Monday. But we have seen broad support for decarbonizing our electric grid in the General Assembly, in the public, and from Governor Pritzker. And I'm confident that we can overcome the objections of this one company and set Illinois on the path to a clean energy future, hopefully in the weeks to come if legislators can return to Springfield in June.
Mark Denzler, how do you see it? How do you see what's at play here in terms of wanting to balance the need for jobs, the interests of existing companies, and so forth? What's your take?
Well, thanks, Phil, for having me. And the energy issue is critically important for the manufacturing sector. We consume 1/3 of all energy in the United States. And so any changes in Illinois' energy marketplace have a significant impact on the state's industrial sector that also employs 555,000 men and women and jobs that average about $80,000 a year. And so, two or three of the magic words that you don't hear a whole lot are: what is the cost impact? What is the impact on reliability of the grid? And more importantly, what is the impact on jobs in the state? And those are all things that need to be considered as the governor and lawmakers debate this energy policy that's going to have a huge impact on the state's residents and businesses.
Mark Densler, do your members see this attempt to transition to green-powered energy? Do they see it as an opportunity? Do they see it as a threat? How would you describe it?
Well, I think, Phil, a little bit of both. Manufacturers have been leaders in reducing energy consumption for decades. As I mentioned, they're the largest users of energy. And over the last decade, we've seen manufacturers reduce their emissions by nearly 20%, while at the same time increasing productivity by a like amount. And outside of personnel costs, energy is often the most expensive line item for any manufacturer. And so for decades, manufacturers have been taking steps to reduce their energy usage. And as I like to say, Phil, manufacturers not only use this technology, we build it and we create it. And there's some amazing and innovative companies and products that you see around the state. So there are definitely opportunities, but there's also concern that if we lose baseload capacity, what's that going to do to the cost and reliability of Illinois' energy sector?
Delmar Gillis, Governor Pritzker is said to be very behind a push for equity in how this energy bill would be implemented, assuming it's passed. What are some of the priorities you have?
Yes, and thank you, Phil. We are really focused on equity through climate action. And what we've really tried to do with this bill is bake equity in. And we've really looked at it from three main areas. The first is access to programs like our Illinois Solar for All program that provides access to solar for underserved communities. The second is through job creation, and we're doing that through the creation of workforce and job placement hubs across the state. And lastly, we're doing it through community wealth building, where we're looking to build a green bank, as well as support diverse contractors and getting access to incentives so that we'll see community solar in every community across the state.
Delmar Gillis, so many goals about inclusion and that sort of thing seem to be aspirational and suggestions only, for want of a better term. How do you know that this bill would be enforceable in terms of meeting the kinds of goals that you were just talking about?
Well, we've done a couple of things in the bill that I think will really kind of change that dynamic, Phil, that you're talking about. The first is that we are really looking to have a system where if you want to access state incentive, you have to meet certain diversity target. So basically, you have to be this tall to ride this ride. The second thing that we're going to do is that we're also going to be collecting and tracking a lot of data around demographics to make sure that we're meeting our goals and targets for the programs. And through those two primary measures, we feel like we're going to be able to drive a lot of the community-based diversity that we want to see throughout the bill and really across the state.
Jennifer Walling, there are reports that Governor Pritzker had reached a tentative agreement with Exelon for increased taxpayer subsidies to prevent the closure of 3 nuclear plants. Is that a good idea?
Well, I think that in talking about Exelon, that is such a de minimis portion of the bill. This bill has so many benefits for renewable energy, reaching 100%, turning off the coal plants that are receiving $1.1 billion a year in subsidies from the capacity market. So many other things. I think that discussion is a tiny part of it to get an energy bill to completion.
Excuse me, Jack Darren, expectations for ultimate passage. The governor seems to be pretty confident as he talked to Amanda Vinicky that this was going to happen. How are you reading the tea leaves?
We're pretty optimistic. If legislators can get back to Springfield in June, we're pretty confident this can get done. There are so many benefits in this for so many communities. The governor's bill is a lot like the Clean Energy Jobs Act, which has close to a majority of the General Assembly of supporters. So the support is there if we listen to communities. And if we don't let the state's biggest polluter try to derail it, I think we can get this done and get on the road to the clean energy future we all want.
Mark Densler, how do you see the odds for this bill actually coming to pass?
I think it's going to be a tight vote, and I think that legislators are going to consider the rate impact of this as one of the things, Phil. And they're looking at $12 to $20 a month for a residential customer, and for businesses, again, it may be a 15% increase in their rates. And so again, I think legislators have to try to balance, as I mentioned, the costs, the reliability, and also the impact on current jobs here. But I think we'll have an answer in the next couple of weeks.
And we shall be watching, and we thank you all for your insights and for your time. Mark Denzler, Jennifer Walling, Jack Darren, and Delmar Gillis. We appreciate it.